Speaking of annexation, we have a community, it's adjacent to the city of Moses Lake, that's nearly surrounded by the city, and that's the Larsen community. Would you like to see that annexed into the city, or do you have another opinion?
I'd like to see the city do exactly what I just stated. Let's study it, let's find out what the costs and the benefits are, and present that to the council for their consideration.
All right, thank you. So, should the city reopen the Larsen Recreation Center?
I think it's something we could talk about. There's, as you know, the Boys and Girls Club just opened a brand new facility in town. And that's not to say that one facility is enough for the city's youth. On the other hand, I think the question of should we reopen or not is only part of the issue. The issue is opening the center a good idea, number one? And number two, how are we going to operate it? Is the center something that should be a city operated facility, or is it something that could be operated by a private entity under some sort of contract with the city? I think that needs to be explored.
And you'd say the same about the ice rink?
I would say the same. I think the ice rink is a very valuable asset to the city. It should be looked at in the same manner. How do we deliver the services in the most cost-effective manner to the community as a whole? That is a question that I will use and ask on every question about facility funding.
Okay. Which brings into question as well is that the city did not fund the fireworks this year, the public did. Is that something you'd like to see the city take up again, the paying for a fireworks show on the 4th of July?
Well, again, I think the city could contribute. But I think the broader question is, I was in the council meeting when that question came up. And I thought it was very interesting. As I recall the meeting, there was some talk about how the city had foregone a substantial amount of revenue because of problems with assessing properties within the city. That responsibility belongs to the county, by the way, not the city. But because of those assessment issues, my recollection is that the city came up short about $200,000. In that same meeting, the city was worried about finding, I believe, around $10,000 to contribute to the fireworks. I think when you look at the scope of these two issues, it's plain to me where the focus ought to be. The focus ought to be the city getting the revenues that it's supposed to get. And then it wouldn't have to worry about questions like, can we afford to fund the fireworks?
All right. So what role should the city council members play in managing city staff?
Well, the city council, in my opinion, ought to be a policy-making body. They should not be involved in the day-to-day operations of the city. That's what the city staff is there for. The city manager and all of the department heads are responsible for running the city day to day. The city council is there to provide policy and overall direction, to reach down into employee matters beyond perhaps the city manager. I don't believe is the city council's job. That's an internal matter for the administration to handle. And there's regular ways of handling any personnel issues within any organization. The city has an HR division, and that's what they're tasked with.
How important is community outreach and communication between the city council and the voters of Moses Lake?
I would like to see more, and that's an answer that, of course, almost begs the question is, well, how would you do that? And I really don't know of the best way to do that. One outreach method that is used by the city is to enclose a flyer or a newsletter with the utility bills. Whether that's adequate, I don't know, because we're talking about the city council reaching out as opposed to the city administration reaching out. Those are two different entities, the way your question is phrased. Whether they can be used in the utility bills, I don't know, but it's at least a way of going.
Some cities have taken on a student council member to represent the youth in the city. Has that ever been a thought in your mind, a possibility or something that you would like to see?
It would be interesting. It'd be very interesting. I certainly would enjoy it. I think a viewpoint of the youth would be very instructive, especially to old bald guys like me. So.
I did have a question about the budget. It seems that over the last couple of years, some of the budget issues come from the ability of people to understand how Moses Lake does their budget. It seems to be different than most other cities. Is that something you've looked at or have taken notice of?
I have not heard that particular comment about Moses Lake's budgeting process. However, the budget is a very important priority personally, and I would give it a lot of attention. I want to know where the city proposes to spend its money. I also want the city to know, to work with the county to ensure that these revenue issues don't recur. And I believe in a proactive approach. I would like to see us sit down with the county and say to the county, how can we help you help us?
And economic development has always been at the forefront of a lot of people's minds for Moses Lake. There's been a lot of legends and mysteries and about whether Costco or some other company might or might not come. Do you see a way, if you're elected city council member, to help with the economic development of Moses Lake?
Well, the first word in my mantra is prosperity. And to me, that means good paying jobs, lots of them. Your question is directed towards a retailer. There's a circle that you have to break. When a retailer looks at an area, they look at how many people, and they look at what's the income. And there's a number of other factors, of course. But those are amongst the top ones. And if they don't see those, they're not coming. And I propose to increase the likelihood of retailers such as another big box, a Costco, coming to town by breaking the circle and showing a higher per capita income, getting those jobs into town. And so the retailers can look at Moses Lake and say, yeah, that's a great place. There's lots of people there, and there's good wages, and we will just make out great there. And that's how I propose to really focus my efforts as a councilman.
And my last question, it's one I ask of every person running for office. Why should people vote for you?
Well, they've got a choice between myself and Mr. Navarez. And I think the essential difference between the two of us is that I'm a product of the private enterprise system. Greg, I believe, has been in government positions most of his career, if not all of it. And I think that my outlook, coming from private enterprise, may be more helpful to the city. I believe very strongly that I want to represent the community. I don't want to be seen as representing a sector of any sort. I want to be a representative of the community and to always ask myself when an issue comes up, what's the best solution for the community? Not what's the best solution for city administration, not what's the best solution for a particular economic group, but what's the best solution for all of us? And that's what I want to do as a councilman, and I think that's why I would like people to vote for me.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate you coming in to answer questions for us and taking the time. iFiber One News will have more episodes like this for other elections in Grant County. Please take the time to watch them all before you vote. I'm Bill Stevenson, and this is iFiber One News.